Hey, Editor Gray here. This is the second half of what was originally a 4-hour long video that I decided to split into two parts. This part covers my overview of the Steam post announcing the end of the PTE and my overall thoughts about the PTE. If you're only interested in my overall thoughts about the PTE, there will be a little message popping up at the bottom of the screen right about now that has a timestamp that you can go to. Anyway, now that I've covered all of that, and it took far longer than I intended it to, let's cover the announcement regarding the end of the PTE. So, let me see. We would like to thank everyone who participated in the first public test. According to our statistics, since the branch launched on April 22nd, it was a... Really? Huh. Oh yeah, because Baltic launched at the end of March, I think. And then, because I always thought it started... For some reason, I kept thinking it's launched at the beginning of March. But I digress. More than 50,000 unique players have joined the test. Throughout both the closed and open phases of the PTE, we evaluated a large number of gameplay changes and design approaches, many of which proved successful and will make their way into the main version of the game. With that in mind, we have decided to conclude the current testing iteration. Access to the branch will be revoked on June 26th. June 26th? Hang on. Because I originally read this in the Discord. And on the Discord, it is claiming that it will be revoked on June 25th. So, let me just close that. See if, close the Discord, reopen the Discord. See if they've changed the announcement at all. No, it's still saying June 25th. Okay. That said, the PTE is far from over. Once a new batch of changes is ready, we will prepare another testing iteration. For now, our focus shifts to finalizing the upcoming update of the main version of the game, for which the following set of changes has already been approved. Okay, so that kind of solves one of my issues with the PTE, was that if they keep iterating the PTE in certain ways, it's going to eventually morph into something that is very, very different from the main game. So what they're doing is they're doing it in, like, sections, where they take a specific change that they want, or a specific number of changes that they wanted to test, and then basically make a version of the base game with those changes. Which makes a lot more sense. So that instead of just having the main game and then the PTE as two separate branches that get updated on their own, either with main updates to the main game or updates to the PTE depending on what they want to test, then it's like branching off from the main game at various different updates, if that makes sense. Ground units. To begin with, the new airborne Riki unit will be added to the game, as well as the new loadout for VDV Dish, equipped with thermal barrack rounds for the RPG-7V2. So, the Sturm. The VDV PKP, though, may not be there. Units from the Baltic Battalion Specialization will also receive several buffs. I have seen people complaining about the Baltic Battalion, how it sucks. I'm honestly not sure if that... Personally, I haven't used the Baltic Battalion that much, so I can't really weigh in on that, but I have seen some people arguing that the Baltic Battalion sucks. In addition, various balance adjustments and new capabilities will affect a range of other combat vehicles. Increase the base damage of tank shells. Okay. Added limits to availability limits expanded for the T-72 family. That is actually a point. Do I have a Russian deck? No, I do not. New battle group. Russia. Create. Vehicle. Okay, that's the same availability limits as in live. 6 and 3. I'm pretty sure. Where is mech? Mech. 6. Yep. And then 3. Yep. Okay, so that's the same availability limits as in live. So I'm not sure what they mean by they'll increase the availability limits for the T-72 family. Although I'd be interested to see what they mean. They might be upping it from 6 and 3 respectively between the T-72B1 and the T-72B3 to 8 and 4. Pricing adjustments for a wide range of AFVs, IFVs, and APCs. I do remember in one of the previous messages, they did mention how the Bradley had basically been massively power crept by the changes to tank cannon ammunition. A new sneak ability. Now, here's something very interesting. The sneak ability, if I'm going to be entirely honest, I'm not convinced about the sneak ability. The sneak ability, I mean, okay, it allows you to reduce or to increase your stealth value, but it reduces your speed. I don't particularly care for that, because the thing about infantry is, all things considered, they are some of the slowest units in the game. And if you want to increase, and if you're going to reduce their speed even further to increase their stealth value, just give me a stealth value of 3 without the sneak ability. But if I'm reading this right, they're not adding the sneak ability to infantry. They're adding it to reconnaissance vehicles and ATGM carriers. Now, this is a very interesting change, because if this does what I think it does, it could be fun. It could be very fun. And I would genuinely like to know the values that that they're going to use here, because if it's an increase in your vehicle's stealth rating by like 0.5, but a speed reduction of only 50%, even if they adjust the vehicle's the vehicle's stealth values, because they adjusted a number of the stealth values for a number of the recon vehicles, instead of just being like 1.25 almost across the board for anything in the recon tab, or any ground vehicle in the recon tab. They adjusted it between 1 and 1.5. If it's a 0.5% stealth increase reduction when sneak is activated, even if it's a 50% speed increase, that could be kind of fun, because that takes a vehicle with a stealth value of 1 and increases it to 1.5. Which, let me just pull up a calculator here to explain what I mean. Okay, so let's say a unit has a vision range of 1200. Alright. Well, let's take that 1200 value and let's divide it. Do I have division on here? I do not appear to have a key that allows me to divide on my keyboard. That is best. Anyway, I could just use this. Let's just divide that by 1.5. That gives us a vision range of 800 meters. So a vehicle with a stealth value of 1 activating sneak, if it was spotted from 1200 meters away, now it's only going to be spotted from 800. Okay. Now, a vehicle with a stealth value of 1.25, like, say, the recon tanks, activating sneak. This is assuming that they'll have sneak, and they may not. In fact, honestly, I'd be kind of surprised if they did. But if they did, it would be funny. It would be very funny. They would have a recon value of 1.75, which gives us a vision range of 686 meters, rounded up. And then a vehicle that has a stealth rating of 1.5 would go to 2. So, and the math for this one should be pretty simple. Divided by 2 equals 600. But I'm just imagining just like... What's the vision range on... What's the vision range on... Yeah, let's use this for example. 400 meters. Or better yet, where's some hapless IFV? Where's a BMP3? There's a BMP3. Vision range 1200. Just imagine getting a Set V2 TUA to like within 700 meters of this thing in the middle of an open field and this not being able to see it. I just love that. It is just so funny. And okay, yeah, sure, that would also apply for the T90 the T90M as well. But it's just funny. Like this thing being able to sneak around. I would that would be that would give me so much joy, even if my attempts to use it would probably fall flat very quickly. Anyway, AirTab and AA. Several SAMs have received range adjustments to give fighters more room to maneuver without strengthening bombers. I don't know. Look, I can understand them wanting to adjust SAMs to give fighters more of an edge. The problem with air-to-air combat now is that your fighters can't really scrap because SAMs have a long enough range to just cover a significant portion of the battlefield. And I don't know of a way to solve that, because I don't think that reducing the range of SAMs is a good idea. Because what that's going to incentivize players to do is to push them forward closer to the line of contact, which is either just going to get them killed faster and not ultimately solve the problem, because since the SAMs are closer to the line of contact, that's still not going to allow the fighters to scrap, because the SAM isn't hanging back, it's just moving closer. And I don't know how to change that without adjusting the range of the SAMs. And I don't think adjusting the range of the SAMs is actually going to solve the problem. Overkill logic has also been improved, and vertical launch mechanics have been refined. Aviation will see a number of changes on its own. If I'm going to be entirely honest, the overkill mechanic, I think it's there for a good reason, and I like it. And I know I've said this before, I'll say it again, and this is a point I stand by, but I think it would be better if we could just tell any kind of SAM launcher and aircraft to launch a specific number of missiles based on the number of missiles within the launcher. Like, if it has 4 missiles in the launcher, allow us to the option of telling the system to fire up to 2 missiles at a target. If it has like 5 to 9 missiles in the launcher, allow us to tell it to fire, if it has between 2 to 5 missiles in the launcher, tell it to fire, give us an option of either telling it to fire 1 or 2 missiles at a target. If it has 6 to 9 missiles in the launcher, then then up to 3 missiles at a target. If it has 9 to 12 missiles in a launcher, give us the option of firing up to 4 missiles at a target. Or more than 9 missiles, I guess, because the only thing that has more than 12 is the MML. And the Panzer SA. Well, no, and the PAC-3. Well, no, it doesn't even have to be like that. It's like 1 to... Actually, no. 2 to 6, 2 missiles per target. 7 to 11... 3 missiles per target, and then 12 and up, 4 missiles per target. I think that would be good. Or up to, so you could still tell a launcher with like 16 missiles to only fire 2 at a target. But if they do that, particularly if they're like if they're ripple fired, maybe with a 1 second or half-second interval between the two, or in between the missiles being launched, it's not really going to require a change to the overkill system. And B, you can't really get mad about the launcher wasting ammunition because you told it to fire that many rounds. So, I don't know. I think that would be something that I'd like to see. And the system would also apply to aircraft as well. Maybe with slightly different values that would determine how many missiles we could launch. Because if I'm going to be entirely honest, why would I bring the 20 AMRAAMs on the F-15EX? I mean, I know that I know that the more missiles you have, the faster the missiles are fired, but I would like it to fire multiple missiles at once, instead of just firing them in very quick succession. And to be entirely honest, I don't play Russia very much, so I don't use vertical launch SAMs very much, so the vertical launch, I can't really weigh in on that. Aircraft will be able to engage ground targets with rockets and air-to-ground missiles without requiring a strafing run order, which could be interesting. I don't use aircraft very much, so I don't have much experience. Resurrection and refund timers have been revised, particularly for strike aircraft, which will generally see longer cooldowns. Alright, this checks out with what I believed their goal was to make strike aircraft less prevalent. Infantry combat and logistics. Penalties from shock and panic states have been adjusted alongside the new mechanic alongside a new mechanic that transfers stress from transports to infantry, including full stress when auto-dismounting from a destroyed vehicle. I've seen a lot of people whining about the fact that infantry is not stressed from a after leaving a destroyed vehicle, because it usually involves the infantry squad in question immediately annihilating their unit that ambushed the destroyed vehicle. I can see it, but I don't know. I still think that just because the infantry is panicked after leaving a destroyed transport doesn't mean that they should immediately get stomped by the ambush team. In fact, if I'm going to be entirely honest, if you do ambush a vehicle, you're probably going to want to move the ambushing unit anyway, because you've already made your presence known. At the same time, infantry micro would become more convenient thanks to an option to resupply units without unloading them from their transports, which I think is nice. A new ability for some vehicles to rearm infantry without using supply dumps. I wonder if that's going to be different from the option of resupplying them without unloading them from their transport. And I wonder if that has to do with this. The plus, okay, ammunition plus healing plus. That's interesting. Ammunition plus healing plus. That's 250. That's 250. That's 4. Some vehicles apparently have 800. Although I do not know of any vehicle in the game with 800. But this apparently affects both ammunition and healing. So 2, 4, 4. No. 250. 250 for 250, 250 for 8. Ah! This has 8. This actually has 8. This is the first unit I have seen that has 800 kilograms. 250, 250, 250. This also has 8. I wonder. Where is Striker Cav? Okay, so the basic Striker has 4, and the Striker ESV also has 4. Okay. Well, that shoots down that idea. 250, 250, 250. The idea I had, because the vehicles that have 8 are you can only bring them if where's that Russian deck I had? There we go. You can only bring them if you bring the these guys. Basically, the Russian version of CQC. They're basically Russian CQC infantry. Like they've got thermobaric launchers or incendiary launchers, and I was wondering because their job of kicking in doors and close combat is going to lead to them getting damaged a lot. And I was wondering if that would mean that vehicles that you can only bring with CQC infantry, like those guys, or engineering teams for the U.S., had the 800 supplies because they're going to be getting basically shot up a lot more. And support vehicles don't have it. $250, $250, $4, $250. I just checked all these. 4, 4. Those have 4. That also has 8. Okay. So that has 8. That has 250. That has 4. That has 4. Okay, so there's only 3 vehicles that actually have 8. Alright. And what about the vehicles in recon? That has 4. The Russians have fewer dedicated recon vehicles than the US does. Than the US do. $4, $250. $250, $250. The Striker RV doesn't have any, I note. I wonder if these changes where vehicles like this do have seats for infantry, if they go live, if they'll get the supplies. That has 4. That does not. That has 4. That is 250. That is 4. Okay. Anyway. Infantry okay, here's something that I kind of like. Infantry transport and helicopters can now survive low altitude crashes, albeit with heavy casualties. So, I like that. But I honestly kind of wonder if it would be better if they just survived crashes at any altitude in general. Although now that I think about it, I kind of find it funny because I have seen on the Discord in the suggestions tab people saying that when you destroy a transport vehicle by ambush, it should automatically kill the infantry inside, like when a helicopter gets shot down. And then the post directly below it was saying that when a helicopter gets shot down, some of the infantry should survive, like when you destroy a vehicle carrying infantry, and I found that very funny. Anyway, I kind of wish instead of just low altitude crashes, it was high altitude crashes as well, because helicopters don't fly that high in this game. So, although I do kind of understand what they mean by low altitude. The thing is that at low altitude, you are flying below treetop level at low altitude. I guess the alternative would be to give helicopters 3 flight altitudes, 1 high, 1 low, and then 1 that is basically at ground level. Because when I say helicopters fly low, I literally mean they are flying lower than trees. Even at high altitude, you're not that high above treetop level. I also wonder whether or not there's, and it's probably not, and the purist, for lack of a better term, part of my brain wants there to be, but I genuinely wonder if there's going to be like a coefficient for each helicopter that determines the damage that infantry take. Because, not to sound a bit like I'm championing for the red, white, and blue guys here, although let's be honest, that's exactly what I'm about to do. The UH-60 has a surprisingly high crash rate. Or, I say crash rate, well, that statement sounds very wrong. Although I would like to point out, when the UH-60 did enter service, it did have a particularly high crash rate, just like the Osprey does now, and yet now the UH-60 is one of the most reliable aircraft in the, or not reliable, but it's one of the most, I don't know, venerable aircraft in the Army, or something like that. I'm not exactly sure what word to use. Anyway, the point I'm trying to get at is that it has a very high survival rate during crashes, because that's exactly what it was designed to do. If you'll notice the landing gear here, there's a sodding great, or at least from my understanding anyway, there's a sodding great big shock absorber in here. The seats that the pilots sit in, you can't see them well here, they can depress a full 12 inches. So that when the helicopter crashes, assuming it actually like comes down on its belly, it's actually pretty survivable. And I'm also pretty sure the Apache has the same thing. I mean, it might. Honestly, the landing gear design does look a little bit different, but... So I wonder if there's going to be different coefficients for helicopter crash survival. Probably not, but I think it would be nice if there were. And if helicopters that actually have good survival rates during crashes had a higher coefficient. Because let's be honest, when something like this goes down, it's not... The record isn't pretty, let's put it that way. And I have a nagging suspicion the argument's the same for pretty much any of these flying boxes that is the Mi-28s. Or not Mi-28s, the Mi-8s. Although you can make an argument that when one of these goes down, the crash rate is equally not pretty. Then again, it's probably not going to matter all that much, because if you actually watch a helicopter that's going down, it's not a soft landing. It usually results in the thing spinning out of control before slamming into the ground. Usually on its side, if I'm not mistaken. So, like I said, it probably doesn't matter. But hey, it's fun to champion for, America. I like it. What? I'm American. And besides, the 4th is coming up anyway, so heck yeah. That's the wrong button. Anyway. Numerous fixes to order logic and interaction between infantry transports and supplies. Okay, so that's just like logic. Artillery. Finally, artillery will receive increased refund cooldowns and longer ammunition resupply times alongside adjustments to several munition types. AoE of clutch munitions has been increased for howitzers. Smoke screen duration for mortars has been restored to 60 seconds. In addition to the changes listed above, this update will include bug fixes and several QOL features, including cooldown timers and TPS values for unit cards. As a final reminder, this is only a brief overview of the most notable changes. The full patch notes will be published on the day update 1.1.0.3 goes live on July 2nd. Now, this is coming out on the Saturday, so it's June 24th now. So that would mean, let me pull up a calculator. This is coming out on June 27th. And so a week after this video comes out, my video covering the new update will come out on July 4th. So, hey, even more reason to champion for the US. We'll see you again very soon. Artillery AoE. I wonder, what is... Give me... cluster for... What is the cluster? Blast radius 50 meters. Right, this doesn't have cluster. It just has extended range or guided extended range. What is... Nope, what is this? This is cluster? Yes, this does have cluster. That's also 50 meters. Where's the A6 Paladin? This has cluster. That's 70 meters. Bring up this. Armored, striker, and airborne. And then the support tabs for each. So, grab cluster. What is the blast radius for cluster? It's still 50 meters. 3.5 damage, 200 millimeters pen. Are these values different? Where's the RWS? There's the... Or the MWS, rather. 3.5, 50, 200. Okay, no, that's exactly the same. If that's exactly the same, I suspect this is going to be exactly the same. Where is the Striker SPH? Cluster. It kind of sucks that they're removing the smoke from the Striker SPH. 3.5, 200, 50. Okay, yeah, that's all exactly the same. I mean, I can check if that's exactly the same, but I'm pretty sure it's exactly the same. Yes, it is exactly the same. So, grab the A6 Paladin. And cluster once again. 74, 2. Okay, yeah, that is the same. So, not all the changes that's going to be in the July 2nd update are here on the PTE. That seems to be the trend. Okay. Well, now I suppose it's time for me to actually go over my thoughts on the PTE. And this isn't really going to be new, I don't think. If anyone has seen my previous videos, they are going to know my general opinions of it. There are things about the PTE that I really like, and then there are things about the PTE that I really don't. And I want to cover the things that I don't like first. Now, the thing that I probably don't like the most Well, no. The thing that the thing that I talked about not liking the most is the range changes to Sam's. And when they covered that in the video, or in their post about what they're bringing over to live when the next update comes, it sounds like their SAMs are going to receive some range changes. And like I said before, I don't like the range changes, but I don't really like... I understand what they want to do with the range changes. They want to give air superiority fighters more room to action maneuver. But I don't know what otherwise to do with the range changes. Like, okay, it's like I was saying before, if you shorten the range, that's not necessarily going to give air superiority fighters more room to maneuver. It's just going to incentivize players to move the SAM closer to the line of contact, where it's just going to be more danger. I guess you can argue you could try and limit the number of SAMs that a team has to 1. Like, instead of 2, it only goes down to 1. Or maybe if instead of 3, it only goes down to 2. But I don't know. I don't think that's a good option either. So I don't know. But I'm not really... Honestly, that's not the change that annoys me the most. Contrary to what anyone might think if they've seen my videos on the PTE before. I think the change that annoys me the most is the infantry availability reductions to some recon infantry, and in particular ATGM teams. I do not understand why you went down to only 2 ATGM teams. Or you can only have 2 of a specific ATGM unit in your deck. I would honestly much rather keep that at 4. Because, like, here's the thing, okay? It actually got to the point where this deck, right? This was the deck I was originally going to do the refinery mission with. But I ran into a problem. If I remove the Troopers AA, I don't have enough, like, I do not have enough stuff that I want, or that I can put in the deck to actually reach the 10,000 point total. Well, I mean, there's enough stuff that I can put in the deck, but the infantry tab is going to be light because I can only bring 2 Milan teams. I can't bring 4. Why am I only limited to 2 Milan teams instead of 4? Like, if I could bring 4, then yeah, I could bring this up to the 10,000 point total. And someone's probably thinking, oh, just bring something else. What? What else? What other ATGM options do I have here? Or rather, what other man-portable ATGM options do I have here? I've got Troopers. Yeah, okay, I've got them. But they're not a dedicated ATGM team. Their Javelin only has 2 missiles. I would like, especially when you think about how they're giving more infantry units more customization options. I would love a customization option for Troopers that instead of this split in between AT4s and Javelins, just give us one customization option with like 6 AT4s for 75 points, or remove the Javelin, give us 6 AT4s, drop the price down to like 75 points, and then give us a customization option to remove the AT4s for 1 Javelin with like 4 or 5 missiles for 90 or 100 points. Do that. I don't know. I don't understand why. Well, actually, no. I kind of understand why they would make this change to try and limit the effect of ATGMs, but vehicle ATGMs are a thing. And I don't actually think you're going to reduce the number of total ATGMs in a match all that much. I guess because this was a change they made back when the PTE was originally launched. I guess if they're trying to, if they were trying to compensate for the increased effectiveness of tanks, but I don't know. I don't like it. I would much rather see it not in the game. So that's my stance on that. And the same thing goes to with recon infantry. Like, why am I only limited? Okay, I can understand being limited to only 4 snipers. I understand that. Or not 4 snipers, only 2 snipers. I understand that. But why am I limited to only 3 of the so-called combat recon? And the funny thing is, alright, I want to point something out here. They've reduced the number of the combat recons, of at least some of them, down to 3. Okay? That's 3. They've reduced the snipers down to 2. Where is... Let me check this one. Oh wait, no, that's Marine. That's not armored. Here it is. Here we go. This is what I was looking for. That's 3. That's 2. I think that used to be 4. That's 3. That's 3. That's 2. Actually, what was Green Berets 4? I want to say they were 4. So just go over here, clear that out, recon. Green Berets had, yeah, they have an availability of 4. I can kind of understand why they would drop the availability of Green Berets down to 2, but and the thing is though, they didn't change all of the fighting recon or the combat recon units to 3. Some of them, like Scouts, Razvedka, and Airborne Riki, are still at 4. And there's probably a couple of others. Let me check something. Let me grab that, and create a deck like that. Okay. Oh, look, there's also Naval Infantry Razvedka's 4, VDV Razvedka's 4. And it's not like it's even super consistent. Let me just grab nuts. Let me just grab this. So I have so that's VDV Razvedka, Naval Infantry Razvedka, regular Razvedka, Airborne Riki, Troopers, and Airborne Riki, Airborne Riki, Scouts, Airborne Reiki Scouts, and was there one other one? I thought there was one other one in SOCOM. No. Okay, apparently there wasn't. So, Airborne Reiki Scouts... Airborne Reiki Scouts... And then V2V Rozvedka, Naval Infantry Rozvedka, and the regular Rozvedka. All stay at 4. Everything else drops to 3. Why do those stay at 4? I don't know. Like, I kind of understand if you want to drop all of them down to 3, but you've kept some of them at 4. Why'd you keep some of them at 4? Just leave all of them at 4. And honestly, you would think that if they were going to drop any of them down to 3, it would be Scouts. Because Scouts are connected to the Striker RV. And the Striker RV is a very powerful vehicle. I mean, okay, yeah, sure, the Striker RV is also incredibly expensive, but it's also very powerful. I remember, and I believe I brought this up on an earlier video. I think it was one of the ones where I was playing Skirmish. Someone was upset about the RV because when you fully kit it out, it's a stealthy vehicle that has great range. Well, I say stealthy, but it's a recon vehicle that has great range, a large autocannon, APS, and a javelin. I'd counter by saying that it costs 180 points. The only change that they've made to the vehicle is they've reduced the stealth value from 1.25 to 1. That's basically a 20% reduction in the vision range of anything, in the vision range of anything looking at it. Now, in the example that I bring up, the person who was complaining about this was upset about it because he claimed that a Striker RV shot down a couple of his KA-52s. And he stated that the Striker RV was in woods, which increased the stealth value, which doubles an object's stealth value. Now, let me just pull up a calculator again. And 2,400, so 2,400. Divided by 2.5 is 960. Meaning that those helicopters could spot the Striker RV if they were 960 meters away. Or if the Striker RV was 960 meters away. The range on the Striker RV's Bushmaster is 1,000 meters. There is a 40-meter gap between when the Striker RV can fire and when it is seen. And yet, the Striker RV shot down a couple of his KA-52s. That doesn't sound like the vehicle is OP. That sounds like you got outplayed. But I digress. I went off topic there. Although I will admit that they have technically nerfed the Striker RV if they're reducing the stealth down to 1. But still, I don't understand why they changed the availability. I think for the combat recon, it should just stay up to 4. Now, I understand why they brought it down to 2 with the snipers. Because let's be honest here, you don't use the sniper for the side and great big rifle they carry around. Alright? They might as well carry around a super soaker. You use them because they have a lot of vision and they are very stealthy. So they are great if you can just get them behind the if you could just get them behind the opponent's lines and then just use them for what they can see. I'd argue that's what all recon infantry is good at, but some recon infantry is particularly good at combat in places like forests. I don't understand why they limit. I mean, I understand why they limited snipers. I don't get why they limited combat recon, and I particularly don't get why they limited the ATGM teams. I mean, you've got two ATGM teams. And even ATGM teams like this, they don't actual ATGMs, they're just like launchers. So teams like this... where is... Like this... Like... Where's Rangers? Like these as well. Like, they're just launchers. They're not actual ATGMs, but they limited them as well. I don't understand why they've done that. This is one change that I honestly do not... This is one change that I do not... I don't like. And I don't think it's good. So, I just... Ugh. Another change that they've made that I'm kind of at odds with, and again, it has to do with the limit of things, is the limit on the transport aircraft. Like, okay, I kind of understand why they limited transport aircraft, because let's be entirely honest, okay? And for some reason, the aircraft aren't limited in this. Ah. Okay. So, the aircraft, I apparently have more aircraft than I can get in this deck. Although, let's be honest here, though. When are you ever going to need more than one C-17? Or more than one C-130? Okay, like, yeah, sure, I can understand that argument. -1 out of 1. But let me just give you a small counter argument. What if I want to make a deck specifically about airdropping things? What if I want to make a video that is literally just me playing a deck where I do nothing but airdrop units? I've already done that. I played absolutely airdroppable on Baltisk, and it was fun. And the only way that I actually could do that is by having a ton of transport aircraft. And that is something that I like. Earlier today, I remember I filled out this feedback thing. They basically wanted me to do a survey, and I did that. And at the very end, they basically they gave me a text box that I could type anything I wanted in, and it's basically just asked me what other feedback would I give to the developers. And I pointed out that multiplayer balance has resulted in is the primary reason that you make balance changes. But multiplayer balance affects the entire game. And that multiplayer balance can easily affect changes, or they can easily make changes that reduce the enjoyment. And in my particular case, they actually have made changes that reduced my enjoyment. I mentioned when I originally played the zombie scenario, I mentioned how fun it would be to bring 2 AC-130s. But the zombie scenario was not introduced until update 1.0.11, and they reduced the number of AC-130s down to 1 in update 1.0.10. Now, did they have a reason to reduce the number of AC-130s? Absolutely. Apparently, there was a strat where you would get 5 people all on comms on one team, just running SOCOM and then something else, and then they would just launch an F-22 and then bring in 2 AC-130s and then just circle the spawn points, so the other team couldn't even spawn anything without it being immediately obliterated. Apparently, that was a strat that people were doing. So yeah, I understand why they made the change. I understand why they reduced the number of AC-130s that you can bring. I understand that. But it's like, yes, I get it. It still reduced the amount of enjoyment that I actually had in the game. Because let's be honest, having 2 AC-130s in the zombie scenario and just being able to sort of alternate them would be very, very fun, especially with the new return to deck timer. The downtime is basically non-existent. Like, let's take this thing, let's kit it out completely. Okay, completely kitted out. Downtime 2 minutes 45 seconds. I mean, the AC-130 isn't getting shot down because the zombies aren't going to be able to do that. I mean, heck, now that I think about it, the AC-130 downtime in the zombies, or the AC-130 downtime, having 2 AC-130s isn't going to matter that much, with the new cooldown timer. But I didn't have the new cooldown timer when I played the zombie scenario back in November. I didn't. And I think it would have been great to bring 2 of them. I could not bring 2 of them. So, I don't know. I don't get why they made these limits. Well, I'd say that I don't get why they limited the infantry, like I was talking about, or why they limited the transport aircraft. Another thing that kind of annoys me is them limiting infantry down, or not infantry, but artillery down to 2 or 4. And I can kind of understand this, okay? Like, I kind of understand it. They want to limit it to the number of units that you, like, they don't want artillery to be too prevalent. I understand that. But one of some of the most fun I had in this game was actually when playing absolutely airdroppable. I grabbed 4 Hawkeyes and 3 Brutuses, and I just shelled the living stuffing out of that one capture point that appears in the crossroads on Baltisk, with the houses in it. I grabbed the Hawkeyes, I grabbed the Brutuses, I grabbed the 5-inch by, I think it's a Mark 45 now, on the Arleigh Burke, and I just shelled that entire point, and it was fun. It was hilarious. And when I played Baltisk on the PTE, I used, where is it? I used this deck, which is now invalid because they made infantry more expensive. And I had 2 Iron Thunders and 3 Paladins. The Paladins, they don't have cluster. Okay. It was fun, just shelling things with artillery. And I get that that's kind of the problem with artillery, is that you just have people just repeatedly hammering things with artillery. So they want to make artillery more expensive, so that if you want to bring artillery, you have to pay for it. I mean, heck, let's just do a little bit of an experiment here. Come on. Okay. These 5 artillery pieces cost 1,100 points. That is more than half of my deck total. That's literally 55% of my support tab that is going just to these 5 artillery pieces. Okay. But I still would like to bring 3 of each. And like I said, they limit it by increasing the price, and they limit it by reducing the availability. But I don't understand why they limit it by reducing the availability. Well, I mean, I do, but here's the thing, okay? And this is going to be an answer that I give for a number of things. And this is not necessarily going to be good for the game. I realize this. And I really, really don't like people pointing out that something should be in the game because of in real life. But one thing that annoys me so much about the artillery availability figures is that a typical artillery battery, at least to my knowledge, consists of 3 guns. I'm fine with this. This annoys me to no end, because I can't bring it up to 3 guns. At the same time, this annoys me to no end, because I can't bring it up to 6 guns, and thus have 2 artillery batteries. Now, I have said before that one thing that I do kind of want to see is the Striker SPH go up to... Oh, it does have an availability of 4 on the PTE. Well, it only has an availability of 3 on live. But one thing that I have said is to have the ability, or is have the availability of this go up to 4. And the reason why was because in the update 1.10 trailer, you can see 4 of these things parked in a line shelling stuff. And I thought that was pretty neat. The alternative is to bring it up to 6, so I can have 2 batteries of 3. It's part of the reason why they're talking about the T-72 availability. It's part of the reason why that kind of irks me, because a standard Soviet and later Russian tank platoon is 3 tanks. 3. So that's 1 tank platoon. That's the wrong tank. Here we go. This is 1 tank platoon. This is 2 tank platoons. Like, honestly, this annoys me because there's only 2 of them. Then again, at the same time, where is it? Then again, at the same time, this annoys me because there's only 2 of them. This is one tank platoon. This annoys me because there's only 2 of them. This is one tank platoon. This kind of annoys me because I can't bring 2 tank platoons, but it doesn't annoy me nearly as much as either of these. And then this is 2 tank platoons. Although I would only bring 4 of these in a deck. Because that's 1 tank platoon. So, to be entirely honest, not all of my concerns can be said to be valid. Or I say my concerns. Not all of my issues that I level here, or the reasons behind these issues, can be considered valid. But not all of them, sure. Most of them, I think that yes, you can. Another thing that they've done with artillery in particular that I don't get, well, actually, no, I do get, but I don't think is good, is they've increased the price for a lot of these. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand why they increased the price for a lot of these. Okay? The problem is that I think the artillery in the base game is a little bit too expensive. Now, having said that, I realize that some of the artillery in the base game is borderline OP. Because let's be honest here, okay? If you take the M270, or not the M270, but the M109 in the base game, alright, with everything that offers, for only 160 points, yeah, that's actually a pretty good deal. But I think in the PTE, the artillery is a little bit too expensive. Now, if they're going to make the changes to the artillery that they have made, particularly if they're going to increase the range of everything by 500 meters, then I don't think that they should keep the prices as they are. But I don't think I should be spending more than 330 points for a Coalizia or a Iron Thunder. I think that's a bit excessive, honestly. And I don't know, maybe 240 points max. I mean, to be fair, I think the Coalizia in the base game is already a bit expensive. I think it's like 225 base, and then 260 for the extended range version. I think that's a bit steep. You could probably keep the prices the same, maybe up them by like 10 points, assuming you give it the extended range version. Like, maybe 225 base for the 225 or 230 points for or base, and then like 260 or 270 for the extended range version. I think you can do that, but just I think the prices are too steep, is the point I'm trying to get at. So, another thing that they've done, and this really only affects one mortar, but another thing that they've done is some of the mortar carriers, when fully kitted out, can be expensive. Although, like I said, this really only affects one mortar. And that mortar is... where is it? It's this one. Because if you fully kit this out, we're talking about a 180 point mortar. Now, you can argue that I'm just nitpicking at this point, because let's be honest here, why would you fully kit your mortar out like this? And okay, yeah, I can kind of see it. If you want to forego the APS and just go with an M240, that drops it down to 160 points, which is still expensive as all get out for a mortar, but it's not as terrible. Or even if you want to drop the armor package entirely, that's still 145 points, which again is pretty expensive for a mortar, even if, yes, you do have guided rounds. I'd like to point out, though, that the mortar carrier for the Striker, which does have APS, does have guided rounds, it actually has a wider selection of rounds, and the M240 is only 120 points. And hey, I mean, what if you want to use the MCV as a quasi-infantry support vehicle? It has an APS, you can mount a Mark 19 on it, you can make an argument that using it like that would be an incredibly stupid way to use a mortar, but it is an option that is available. I don't know, it seems a bit expensive. like excessively expensive. And some of the Russian mortars are also can also get kind of expensive as well. Like, what's the benefit here? I mean, I don't think this is too bad. Actually, it has very good view range, all things considered. I'm guessing because of this optics package on top. I don't think this is too bad because 2,400 meters is nice on a mortar. But I think some of these, like, I don't know. I think some of them can be a little bit excessive. Actually, where is this? Because doesn't this become a mortar? It does become a mortar with a significantly shorter range. Honestly, I don't like this being a mortar. I think either they should make a. I think they should either make a separate mortar, which you can argue they don't even need to do that because this already exists. And heck, where is the Oh yeah, they moved it to motorized. This thing. They moved it to motorized. They haven't updated the vehicle speed, which I hope they do. But they moved it to motorized. But I don't even think this should be a mortar. Anyway, what other issues can I think of? Because I'm probably going to think of something after I make this video, and I'm not going to be able to put it in the video. What other issues with the PTE? Oh yeah, well, one thing that I don't like about the PTE is that they've adjusted the ranges of all the infantry rifles. Instead of firing out to 400, they now fire out to 500. Instead of the CQC rifles now fire out to 400 instead of 300. And a lot of the longer ranged guns that could fire out to like 700 meters now only fire out to 600. I've seen some people pointing out that by adjusting these range values, they have basically limited they've basically removed the range advantage that Delta had. Because on live, the KAC and the MRGGS can fire out to 700 meters. So now they can only fire out to 6. And combine that with the fact that everything else, aside from DMRs and light machine guns, could only fire out to 4. And the MRGGA could fire out to 6, means that Standoff Delta actually had quite a significant range advantage over their opponents. Now, I don't mind that. I mean, heck, if you want to make Delta more expensive, then by all means do it. To compensate, but I want to see the ranges come back. Because now it just... I mean, to be fair, I have my problems with Standoff Delta, particularly with the Fletcher launcher. I don't know what the Fletcher launcher is good for. Like, okay, I can see it being useful against light armored vehicles. Just give them a Moz. Heck, just give them AT-4s. Just take this guy, take away the funky rocket launcher, just give him an MRGGA, and give them like half a dozen AT-4s. Because the Fletcher launcher, it's not useful against armor. at all. Like, okay, it might be useful against helicopters, but it's not any use whatsoever against an armored vehicle. Honestly, the only... This is going to sound, once again, like I am biased towards the U.S. Which is basically what I meant earlier when I was talking about championing for the U.S. But I kind of want to see the range of the M27 stay at 600 if this change goes to live. Or at least go out to like 500. Because the M27, yes, that would be a buff to Marines. Yes, that would technically be a buff to Marine Raiders. Let me explain why I think that it would be good. Particularly for Marines. Because here's the thing, Marines don't come with any light machine guns, or DMRs, or anything. Meaning that it wasn't hard to outrange them with light machine guns or DMRs. But if the M27 can fire out to 600 meters, then they don't need light machine guns or DMRs to fire out to that range. Now you can point out that argument falls flat when you look at the Marine Raiders, which do have light machine guns and DMRs. And okay, yes, fair point. But let me explain why it doesn't matter. And again, this is going to go into the sort of but in real life thing, so it can honestly go either way. Because this is going to sound a lot like cherry-picking data, and I guess you can argue that it technically is. But I do not think that just because it is in real life, it should be in the game. I think that if something is in real life, then you should at least look at it. But just because it is in real life... Oh. I saw these at the bottom. And, like, the yellow and the white. And I thought some of the pixels in my monitor were not working. And I was about to mildly freak out that my monitor, that my monitor is failing, but it's not. I digress. Just because something is in real life doesn't mean that I think it'd be good for the game. Because let's be entirely honest here, okay? You can call this being biased towards the US, but if you were to take the US and Russia and represent them in game like they were in real life, the Russian players wouldn't have to worry about the US having a 53% win rate. They'd have to worry about the US having something closer to an 80 or 90% win rate. Because let's be brutally honest here. If you took the US military and you put them up against the Russians, who I'd like to point out have been stonewalled in Ukraine for almost 4.5 years, and subject to that kind of attrition, who has a military that is rife with all different kinds of corruption, they're going to get folded into a pretzel very fast. So, yeah. Not everything needs to be in real life, like in game. But, just because not everything needs to be in real life, like in game, doesn't mean that you can't take cues from real life. Having explained all that, let me move on to the M27 IAR. The M27 was originally intended to replace things like the M249. Now you might wonder how a rifle fed with 30-round magazine is designed to replace a belt-fed light machine gun. And it was basically a suppression weapon, but instead of suppression in the normal sense of just sprayed bullets and to keep the enemy's heads down, the idea was basically accuracy over volume. Not accuracy by volume, accuracy over volume. Eventually, however, the Marine Corps basically decided to adopt it as their service rifle altogether to replace the M4. And if I'm going to be entirely... Well, I say the M4. Did they have the M4? Because the other option they have is the M16A4. So, they might not have had the M4 at all. So, honestly, I would like... Because the M27 is basically supposed to be a longer range rifle, I would like it to keep the 600 meter range in game. Well, I say in game. In, when this goes to live. All the other range changes I don't really care about, or I don't really care for, because... I don't know, it kind of closes the gap. And I understand that gap can be kind of annoying, but it puts less emphasis on... It puts less emphasis on units like this, honestly, with their 3 PKPs. Or units like this. So, with their 3 M240s. It makes them less powerful, which, yes, they can be very powerful, but if you already have something filling that role, why would I bring these? That's my issue. So, and even then, you don't necessarily have to up the range of the M27 to, that's the wrong one, to, you don't have to up the range of the M27 to 600 meters. You could just up it to 5. I think that would be good. I passed infantry. Where is airborne? There we are. Also, I noticed that they changed the armor pen. And just leave it at 15 millimeters to 5 millimeters is what the live value is for most rifles, instead of 7 to 15. I mean, in hindsight, this is actually a... Well, hang on, wait, no. Where is... Yeah, no, it's still 7 to 15. In hindsight, this is actually a buff, because the armor penetration is technically higher, I think. Is that right? Where is, I need infantry. Infantry. Where is mech rifleman? Yeah, it's 15 to 5. Now it's like 15 to 7. So that is technically a buff. Because you have slightly better penetration at longer range. But I wonder exactly how much heavy lifting that's doing. And particularly since they've reduced the prices of most of the infantry, if they reduce this down to like 55 points, but reduce the range and then bring the long range penetration down to 5 millimeters, I wouldn't mind that. But I bring up the penetration because I want to cover airborne for a bit. Because they've done something with airborne that kind of annoys me. And specifically, they've given it the same penetration value. Now, airborne originally had a penetration value of 20 and 10, as you saw me mess around here a minute ago. It's... Well, wait, no, that's the standard. Where's the NGW? There's the NGW. It's 20 and 10. Now, you can argue that this is a bit of a buff, because instead of 20 and 10, it's not 20 and 12. The thing is, the M7, the gun that they have, is specifically designed to penetrate body armor at range. Okay? That's the whole point of the NGW program. Or NGWS program, I'm not sure which. That's the whole reason why they adopted the 6.8 by 51. Let me give you a few figures here, okay? your average 5.56 is leaving the barrel at about 3,000 feet per second. It also weighs around 55 to 65 grains. Your average 7.62 weighs about 150 odd grains, but is leaving the barrel at only about 24 to 2,600 feet per second. The 6.8 by 51 that these things fire weighs only a few grains less than 7.62, but is leaving the barrel at 3,000 feet per second like 5.56 is. It's a heavier round, and it's moving faster. Well, it's a round that's about as heavy as the heavy round, moving at the same speed as the light round. And to give you another point of reference, the average chamber pressure of most of these rifles is around 60,000 psi. The chamber pressure of an M7 Spear is 80,000 psi. So it's a decently heavy round and it's moving very fast. And the reason is to punch through body armor at long range. I mean, they are giving it an advanced targeting scope to allow it to allow infantry to make those kinds of shots. That explains the 600 meter range. But why did they drop the penetration down to only 7 to 15? The penetration range down to 15 millimeters to 7 millimeters for the M7. That's another thing I don't like. Especially when you think about the M250, which shoots literally the exact same round, has a penetration range of 20 to 12. Just give it 20 to 10 across the board. It's literally the exact same round. I mean, okay, you can make an argument that yes, the barrel is longer, which might increase muzzle velocity because the round is basically has more time as it's traveling down the barrel to be accelerated by the deflagration, I believe it's pronounced, of the powder. It doesn't really matter that much, honestly. Just up this. I know airborne is kind of powerful. I don't mind if you increase the price slightly for airborne if you just give them the original 20 millimeters to 10 millimeters of penetration. I honestly do not mind. In fact, I kind of want the penetration to go up slightly to like 25 to by 15. Actually, that's a that's a point. What is the penetration value of most DMRs? Well, that stayed at 10 to 20. That's 10 to 20. Why am I looking at this? I want recon, airborne snipers. What is the DMR? 20 to 10. 20 to 10. This is a sniper rifle. I get this, which doesn't actually. I thought there was a DMR with like a 30 millimeter to 15 millimeter pen range. Where's SOCOM? There's SOCOM. Green Beret snipers. 20 to 10, 20 to 10, 40 to 20, 30 to 15. Okay, so it's actually a sniper rifle. Alright. Alright, well, I was mistaken. Anyway. So that basically covers what I do not like about, that basically covers what I don't like about the PTE. Well, now that I think about it, there are things that I wouldn't necessarily say that I don't like, but I'm a bit meh about. And one of them is this. The fact that they've made small drones basically count as helicopters. They can't be engaged by long range at all, but they can now be engaged by a bunch of other things, actually. They can be engaged by everything from man pads to IFV autocannons to even just infantry rifles. And here's the thing. I honestly don't think it matters very much, or I don't think it's going to matter. In fact, I honestly think that the new flight profile for them makes them more vulnerable. Because if you remember when, or for anyone who's actually seen it, when I was playing Baltisk on the PTE, not only do they occasionally send Orions at you, they also occasionally send things like foreposts and Corsairs. I just didn't need to worry about them because they kept getting consistently shot down by the Bradleys with their 25mm autocannons. I would argue that the new flight path for the drones makes them more vulnerable. So. Aside from that, though, I mean, I suppose I could gripe about the limitation of the high altitude range for some of these SHORAD systems, but I've already griped about I've already went on at length about the issues that I have with the AA ranges. And the high altitude range for SHORAD systems, for missiles in particular, I honestly don't think it's going to have that much of an effect. Because to be entirely brutally honest, like, is that really going to be useful? I don't know. I don't really think it is, but anyway, I digress. To move on to things that I do like, I like the tank changes, as I've already explained. I like the tank changes. I think that making them hit harder is much, much nicer. And here's the thing, okay? And I was actually going to try and demonstrate this with a scenario. But I found, amusingly enough, that well, I say demonstrate this with a scenario. I was going to try and demonstrate this in the scenario editor. But I found, amusingly enough, that I completely forgot about vehicle armor mattering. So it wasn't quite going to establish the point that I make. The thing is, this gun, the weakest AT gun in the game, I'm pretty sure, 8.5 damage. Where is... it might not be the weakest AT gun in the game. Where is... Hang on, USMC. Sorry. Longtime Halo fan here. Okay, so it's not actually the weakest APFSDS in the game. But it's just tied with the 105 for the weakest APFSDS in the game. This thing can now 3-shot a T-15. Or not T-15, a T-14. Beforehand, it would be 4 shots. But the thing is, with the extra damage, like, tanks now feel better, okay? There was one point when I was playing Baltisk where I just took 4 Set V2s and I just rolled them up an avenue. And then just let them mow down whatever they put in front of them. I wouldn't be able to do that in live. I mean, I could still do that, but they wouldn't be able to kill everything fast enough. Okay, they could still use the heat against infantry, and they had Tusk 2s, so they had an extra M2 Browning. but it wouldn't be quite as good. So I like the changes that they've made to I like the changes that they made to tanks to make them more dangerous. While I'm here, one thing that I will say is to go into the meh category that I don't like or hate is that large SAMs can no longer one-shot anything. I think that's meh, but that's just me. Anyway, to get back on to what I mean about the tanks, I like the fact that they're more dangerous now. And I wonder if the higher AP shell damage is going to mean that we see more vehicles like the... if we see more vehicles like the BMOP or the M60A1 or the Striker MGS more often. Or the Booker. Because let's be honest here. Everyone took the 50mm Booker. I took the 50mm Booker. You took the 50mm Booker. Don't lie about it. We all took the 50mm Booker. The 105mm Booker, it was honestly overshadowed by the 50mm. It was. Let's be entirely honest with ourselves. It was. So, hang on. If the engine is in the front... I mean, I assume the engine's in the front. So what's that? Anyway, I digress. But I wonder if we're going to see vehicles like the MGS, the M10 with the 105, or the M60 more. I wonder if they're going to be more common, and I think it would be nice if they were, because with the extra AP shell damage. And the same thing goes with the MA AGS, and I specify AGS to not get it mixed up with the Thunderbolt. Although, let's be honest, the Thunderbolt is still a very tempting choice because you are running around with the best ammunition in the game. So, I mean, it's basically made of paper, even with the full armor package, but still, you are running around with the best ammunition in the game. And hang on, I think my cat is scratching on my bedroom door. Nope, it wasn't the cat, it was just someone trying to get my attention. Anyway. But I still think it'd be interesting to see if these smaller caliber 105mm guns become more common. Huh. Anyway. So, I like the extra AP shell damage. I think I really think that helps with tanks, because here's the thing about tanks: you kind of expect tanks to be, well, tanky. I mean, like, that's where the name for tank, as in the tank of a D&D group, comes from. You expect tanks to be tanky. And what on earth is that reflecting? Oh, that is this. It's just the reflection is weird for some reason. Anyway, but what I mean is you'd expect the tank to be tanky. Tanks aren't all that tanky in this game. Like, they're not. You can, like, any tank in the game can be killed by 2 hits with a top attack missile. Well, except for the Lemur. But tanks are not that tanky. Okay, a Javelin or a TOW-2B can kill anything in the game in 2 hits. So it would kind of make sense that they don't have a whole lot of firepower if they were super tanky. But like I just said, they're not. Oh, and I will say this before anyone says, "Oh, but Russia doesn't have any top attack missiles." No, you don't have. Well, actually, that's not true. You do have top attack missiles. It's called the Hermes and the Lemire. Even if the Lemire isn't particularly well, the HE pen nerf did really hurt it. I'll say that. But what you do have is the Cornet M. A Cornet M can kill a fully kitted out M1A273 from the front in 4 hits. Okay? And yes, I mean even if the vehicle has APS. Because you want to know what else you have? A lot of IFEs that can mount the Cornet M. And a lot of those IFEs will fire 2 missiles at a time. So even if one of them is smacked out of the air by the APS, the other one's going to go through. And if you have like 2 K-17s or 2 B-11s firing their Cornets at a Set V3, they're going to kill it before the Set V3 is probably able to kill one of them. I mean, I haven't actually tested that, but it might put 2 shots into one and kill it, but it's gonna die. So, let's be honest here. And honestly, or anyway, they aren't super tough. Like, a fully kitted out tank can be killed. So it's nice to see that they have, or that they can do more damage, is the point I was trying to get at. Another thing I like about the PTE has to do with the artillery, and that's basically the range, and in general, I like the loadout changes. I mean, there's some annoyances here and there. Like, where is... Here we go. Like, the M109A7, or not the M109A6, or the M109A7, I think it's the M109A6. Yeah, this thing. It's not quite as flexible. You had, because on live, you have an option between HE, smoke and guided rounds, or cluster smoke, and then the Copperhead. And the Copperhead is not like your typical guided HE shell, because the Copperhead has a much smaller blast radius. I'm pretty sure it's a much smaller blast radius. Yes, it has a much smaller blast radius, but has 600 millimeters of pen. This is specifically intended to be guided into an armored vehicle. So, actually, I kind of wish we saw the Copperhead more in this game. I think this is the only vehicle that has it. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing a Copperhead option on this thing. And another great example is the Brutus. Because with the Brutus, on live, you have an option between smoke rounds, HE rounds, cluster rounds, and then guided rounds. But on the PTE, you only have an option between extended range rounds and then basically extended range guided rounds. Which, okay, I mean, that's nice. And the guided ammunition does make the vehicle more expensive. But let's be honest. having that flexibility, I think is better. In fact, the point I just made about the Copperhead, give this thing guided Copperhead rounds. I think that'd be fun. Like having a guided anti-armor artillery. I think that could be fun. I don't know, like, or I suppose another alternative would be to make an artillery vehicle that specifically has guided, or that specifically has Copperheads, that can only carry Copperheads, but has a much lower aim time. Because, let's be honest here, 20 seconds plus time of flight, that's like, what, 25 seconds or more that a vehicle needs to expose itself in order for you to be able to fire on it. That's, I don't know, that's, at that point, it feels like there should be easier, or it feels like you have easier ways to kill it than something like that. But I don't know. That's a bit out of the purview of the PTE. It's more like a general game issue rather than a PTE issue. Other things that I like, and I know I've mentioned this before, is the reductions to things like the cost of infantry. I honestly like that infantry has been made cheaper. I like that some helicopters have been made cheaper, particularly the transport helicopters. I like that the transport aircraft has been made cheaper, because, let's be honest, 250 points for a C-17 or an IL-76 was a bit steep. And I like that stuff has been made cheaper. I do. Some arguments you can make about availability I already have, but I like that stuff has been made cheaper. I hope to see that cheaper stuff go into live, or those cheaper prices rather go into live. What other things do I like about the PTE? And yeah, there's also helicopter maneuverability. One of the issues I have, or I suppose have, is still technically applicable with the PTE, or not PTE, but with helicopters, is that they're kind of drifty. Like, they've got a lot of momentum, and when you tell them to change direction, they don't immediately change direction. They kind of sort of drift. It feels to me like helicopters are more responsive, but at the same time, I don't ever remember really noticing them being super responsive. So it might be a bit of a placebo effect. So I can't really judge that one. At least not yet. Another thing I do like is I do like the on the subject of price reductions. I do like that they've made the prices of air-to-air missiles cheaper on aircraft. So I like that, and I like that. That kind of sort of goes into the things are cheaper now. Actually, that's a point. I want to do a bit of a. I want to take a look at something. Aircraft, Harrier, because the cost of a Harrier with 6 AMRAAMs on live is $250. Can't this thing have 6 AMRAAMs? Yes, it can. I'm just blind. Now it's 185. And heck, I can bring it down to 165. If I wanted to bring a gun pod and ECM, that's still 205 points. If I just wanted to bring ECM, that's 195. Now, personally, I don't know. I get weird, like, with OCD when things don't end at 0 points. Because if I only put 1 in the deck, like... I want my tab totals to be at 0 instead of 5 points. I get weird if it's at 5... Or I feel weird if it's at 5 points. But, anyway, that's just my personal gripe. So, yeah. I guess if you kit it out like that, it's only 190 points. Or only 150 if you kit it out like this. You can bring 4 of these for 600 points. Anyway. There's also just a bunch of little things that I like about the PTE that I can't think of right now, which really sucks because I know I'm going to remember them in a few hours and then proceed to kick myself. But I like the tank changes. I like the price reductions. There are some things about the artillery changes that I do like. I like the extended range. I think that might be a bit of a problem when it comes to air defense, because if they're reducing the range on air defenses, then and increasing the range on artillery, that just means that you're likely going to see a whole lot more SAMs being destroyed by long-range artillery. So, through a combination of long-range artillery and the fact that players are probably going to move their SAMs closer to the line of contact anyways. Aside from that, though, I don't think there's much else that I need to cover. Those are my general thoughts about the PTE. Oh yeah, a couple other things. The ability to rearm and resupply and heal infantry while in transports, I think, is nice. Like transports carrying a certain amount of supplies with them, I think that is nice. And in the PTE, I will say this, in the PTE, it seems like, the point values allow for both ammunition and healing. And when this change goes live, I'd be kind of interested to see whether or not the, I'd be kind of interested to see whether or not because it looks like you've got a plus by ammunition and a plus by healing, so I assume that means that works for both. So I'd be interested to see if some vehicles can only heal infantry but not rearm them, while other vehicles can both heal and rearm infantry. So I think that would be an interesting... That's interesting. So I think that would be an interesting thing to see. So I like that. And the auto firing for the mortars, I remember I tried that on Baltisk, and I can see how it's useful, but at the same time, I don't know. like, okay, I understand how it can be useful. I really do. I don't think it's going to be... I think it's going to be very situational. That's the point I'm trying to get at. Like, okay, yeah, sure, it's going to be useful. I get that. It's not going to be useful every single time. Excuse me. And there's only 4 mortars in the game that can actually do it. Like, let's be honest here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, technically. 12 mortar systems in the game, and only 4 can do it. This, either with either of these two, they have auto fire. Not with this. This. And this. And that's only with this, not this. Although I will say that it is interesting that they did kind of incentive or give the Dragonfire some more incentive to be used. It's the only U.S. mortar with a 2,400 meter range. But I'd probably just end up using the Dragonfire anyway, even if it only had a 2,000 meter range. So, and I said there was only 4 mortars. Technically, there's only 3. It's just that 2 options on this thing can take the auto fire. And okay, the auto fire with the 2B9 might be fun. I remember using the 2B9 in the campaign. And having a mortar that fires 4 rounds per magazine is pretty fun, I'm not gonna lie. I think it's gonna be a very situational change. So okay. Actually, you know, now that I think about it, here's another thing I don't particularly care for. And that is the salvo length. Like, you can select a salvo length for your artillery. This, I understand for large caliber artillery systems. That I understand. This for like sort of I say large caliber or large like high-end, for lack of a better term, artillery systems. Well, then again, I suppose that it only really matters with this thing, okay? This salvo length, I understand. This, I understand for like high-end artillery systems, either 3, 6, or 9 rounds. This makes no sense to me. Why is the minimum fire duration so so many rounds? Like, why is the minimum fire duration so many rounds? And I haven't actually tried it with this. Like, I haven't tried it with the Acacia specifically, but I'd like to point out that a long duration fire mission, you would fire more rounds than you have. This makes no sense to me. Like, this, for something like the Coalizia or the PZH 2000 makes sense. This does not make sense for the Coalizia. I mean, heck, even if it's only 246. You're talking about a gun that can reload in only 4 to 5 seconds. You've also got things like the K9. Or the PZH 2000. Another a 4 to 5 second reload. Give us a 3, 6, or 9 round option for this thing. Or maybe a 2, 4, or 6 round option. Why does the why does the why does the I don't get why I don't get why the fire mission durations have to be like that. Just give us longer fire mission durations, but not the crazy, stupid long fire mission durations like on this. Like, for a gun like this, I can kind of... again, like, I know I said it before, but honestly, just give us a fire duration that's like 2 rounds, 4 rounds, and 6 rounds. For a gun with a fast reload like the PZH, or... Where is the Iron Thunder? Or the Iron Thunder? Like 3, 6, or 9 rounds. Like this. But for something like this... Okay, well, I mean, that's not too bad for the A6 Paladin. But for something like this, or where's the Mazda? Actually, for that matter, bring in like this doesn't make any sense. Or this. I honestly don't think that, even with a long duration fire, I don't think that it should be more than 12 rounds. I don't understand why they've done it. Like, maybe 4, 8, 12. That sounds pretty solid. 4, 8, 12 for even a system like the Striker SPH, the MWS, or the Acacia. And this thing as well. And then for systems like, for higher end systems like the M109A6, the M109A7, the Mazda, the 2S5, the M109A5, the yeah. Then maybe something like 2 rounds, 4 rounds, and 6 rounds. And then with... because with some of these mortars, you also get, or at least I believe with some of these mortars, you get a ridiculously large salvo lengths. And I kind of suspect that this is one of the things that's PTE related. But at least I hope it's PTE related. But, or heck, maybe even something like 5, 10, 15 for long duration. But actually, no, I honestly think 15 is a little bit excessive. I mean, 4, 8, 12 for the M109, or 4, 8, 12 for the Hawkeye, the Striker SPH, the M109A5, I can see that. Or heck, maybe even not that. Or like the Acacia, the 2S1, and a couple of the other low-end artillery. And then for things like the M109A6, the M109A7, the 2S19, the 2S5, you might have like maybe even the same, or maybe just like 246, or maybe like 369. But the lower caliber systems would have. Actually, that's a point. Where is the A222? There's the A222. Like, I don't get that. But maybe the lower caliber systems would have like 4, 8, and 12. The A222, the 2S1, the Hawkeye, and the 2S9 or the Striker SPH, and then 155 or 152 millimeter systems like the 2S19, the M109A5, the M109A6, the M109A7, the 203, or the 2S3, the 2S5 would have maybe 369, and then you would get systems like the Koalitzia, the Iron Thunder, the K9, and the PZH 2000 would also have 369, or maybe 236, or not 236, 246, but they also have that very fast that very fast reload time that would help cycle through them. And then you get one-offs like the 2S7, which is basically firing a massive shell that would get 1, 2, or 3. Also, I'd like to point out the extended range version only increases the range by 200 meters instead of 500. Then again, it only increases the range by 200 meters in the base game, doesn't it? From like 4, 3 to 4, 5. I don't know. If it increased it by 500, I would understand the. I'd understand it, but as it stands, I think I'd just take the base version. Even if it did increase it by 500, I'd take a 10-point increase on the price, actually. Because if it increased it by 500, I would just take the extended range all the time, to be honest. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the PTE and everything else in this incredibly long video. I've been going for a while. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on the PTE. That's my thoughts on the changes that they've made to the that's my thoughts on the PTE. That's my me covering the changes that they made to the PTE and me covering the closure of the PTE all in one video. This is going to be quite long. Anyway, I will come back in about a week for the overview of the update on July 2nd.